In his new book, Tim Urban compares world history to a 1,000-page book. A book with 250 years of history written on each page. Then he made a table comparing the first 999 pages of this book with the last page. There is an incredible difference between this book and the last page. Think of all the things that you use in your daily life that work with electricity. All of them, along with electricity itself, were invented in the last paragraph of this last page. Now I want to take this analogy a little further. If we turn this last page of the last 250 years of history into a 250-page book, do you know what would be written on the last page? DALL-E, Chat GPT, Whisper, Pointy, Chat GPT Plus and GPT-4. These are just some of the technological developments related to artificial intelligence that have occurred not even in the last 1 year, but in 8 months since August last summer. Because these are just innovations coming from one organization, OpenAI. No, we're not here to praise OpenAI. In fact, we're going to curse it in our own way for the way it has deteriorated a bit lately. But I'm not just making this book and its last page analogy. These are very different times. In the last week alone, at least one new development has been announced every day. We need to be able to read them well. And the latest addition to these lines, the word GPT-4, requires us to underline it and read it more carefully. Yes, while we were still looking at ChatGPT, confused about what to do with it, while we had just done 17 different trials of artificial intelligence, GPT-4 was introduced on the 14th of the 3rd month, on Pi Day. Before 24 hours had passed, striking examples began to emerge. It looks at a napkin and makes a website. In this video, we will not only see examples like this, but we will also catch the fine details in its 96-page technical documentation. Because now a new page in artificial intelligence has opened. OpenAI says of GPT-4 that it has human-level performance. It's not perfect, but then again, you're not perfect. OpenAI already says a lot of things with this salesman's mouth. It has changed a lot lately. They started out as open, meaning open artificial intelligence. It was a non-profit organization, and they were trying to prevent artificial intelligence from being harmful with commercial concerns. Elon Musk was even among the founders, but he left later. Nowadays, he may be lamenting, "I wish I hadn't left." Because how did this non-profit organization, to which I donated $100 million, become a company with a market value of $30 billion? He asks. I think he knows the answer to that question very well, because he, like Walter White, has become something else before our eyes. And can we find the answer to this question? I asked GPT-4. He doesn't even know the new version is out yet. He is still not self-aware. But there is a lot of innovation in many areas. The innovations are grouped in 3 main categories: creativity, visualization, and length. We know that they can do creative and technical writing tasks, such as composing a song, writing a script, or learning someone's writing style. They give an example from the Cinderella fairy tale. They ask her to summarize the fairy tale, but on one condition. Summarize it in such a way that each word starts with a letter of the alphabet from A to Z and never repeats it again. I don't know why anyone would make such a request, but he fulfills it anyway. Whereas with ChatGPT and GPT 3.5, we could only ask for things by typing, this new version also accepts images as input. The length of article entries has been increased. Now we can do 25,000 word entries. So you give a book of about 100 pages and you can ask for anything in it. In addition to these innovations, there are also improvements. The thing that caught my attention the most was the language support. The tests that measure accuracy in ML, machine learning, are done in English. Because these machines learn from English sources the most. This time they asked 14,000 multiple choice questions in 57 different categories in different languages. The most successful language is still English, with 85.5 accuracy rate. I think that's the most important difference. Visual entries. We can enter with visuals as well as text. In this way, he can even interpret memes, which have become one of the building blocks of modern culture. This feature particularly caught my attention because I've been driving a Tesla, a vehicle that has been trying to be a self-driving car for years, but its ability to identify what it sees on the road has not yet reached this level. Of course, it needs to make these assessments dozens of times a second in real time. But I think we are rapidly approaching the solution of one of the most difficult problems to solve in the field of artificial intelligence: autonomous driving. I think the most advanced feature of GPT-4 in terms of visual input is that it can even understand memes. Now, let me ask you, if we go out on the street and show people a picture of a me, how many of them can make a description like that? And even if they could, how many of them could write down their thoughts so beautifully? Look, I am talking about the gap between people. Part of the world is made up of those who can adapt to such development. The rest of the world is made up of those who don't care about them, those who care but can't understand them, and those who can't understand them but call them the devil's invention and take the easy way out. The gap between these two groups is widening. This is why we see increasingly harsh polarizations. Those in the first group have already started to develop applications in this regard. An organization called Be My Eyes has announced that they will use this technology for the visually impaired. They will integrate the virtual volunteer feature into their app, which will allow the GPT-4 to describe what the visually impaired person sees around them with the phone in their hand. For example, while shopping, this virtual volunteer describes the clothes around as follows. I see 3 pieces of clothing. The first one is a blue sweater with a high collar with small holes along the fabric. He continues by describing the second and third garments. Another example does the opposite. It creates 3D worlds according to your description. You can work in this world. You can add, subtract, change. One of the biggest areas of development for GPT-4 has been law. They even showed this in their marketing materials. While the previous version was in the last tense of the law exams, this new version is in the first 10s. So if 9 humans and 1 AI take the exam, GPT-4 comes first. So are robot lawyers coming? They are already here. The developers of the world's first robot lawyer project say that GPT-4 is at least 5 times better than GPT 3.5 in terms of cases. Because we used to be able to give sample texts of 3,000 words, now this new generation large multimodal model accepts texts of 25,000 words. Think of it like this. You get an automated call on your phone. You know those spam calls for marketing purposes. You press a button, the caller's words are recorded, transcribed, and instantly used as evidence to file a $1,500 lawsuit against the caller. As the saying goes, robot lawyers will take care of these robot callers. The war between humans and robots has not started yet, but Robots Against Robots has. He was already pretty good at writing game code, but now he can write almost all the games from the 90s. Did you want to play Snake, the favorite game of the first mobile phones? Here's the code. Pong, the ancestor of computer games, takes less than 60 seconds to code. Tetris is a bit more complicated, but GPT-4 says we got this. Right now you can play this game whose code was written by an artificial intelligence using only your browser. Another striking example. You open the refrigerator door and take a photo. GPT-4 identifies the contents of the fridge and gives you examples of recipes that can be made with them. Matchmaking services will use it to find your ideal partner, and services for children will make them tell bedtime stories. Speaking of children, this was one of the things that caught my attention at the OpenAI launch. ChatGPT was criticized mostly because it could cause students to cheat. It was even banned in many schools. This time, an example of artificial intelligence in education was introduced simultaneously with the launch. Khan Academy, a nonprofit education platform, announced that they offer a tutor service with GPT-4. Therefore, the narrative that we can call getting used to living with artificial intelligence rather than standing against it was supported in this way. I partly agree with this narrative, and in this video I try to show how we can do it, but I have to admit that I am also worried. In the GPT-4 announcement, besides a lot of striking examples, they also published a boring 99-page technical report. I didn't bother, and instead of rushing this video, I sat down and read that document first and found some interesting points between the lines. Let's take a look at them together. Between the lines. First of all, this 99-page document lacks many important details. They already admitted on the second page, given the competitive environment and the security implications of large-scale models such as GPT-4, this report does not include further details on architecture, including model size, hardware training computation, dataset creation, training method, or the like. So OpenAI is no longer open. It is turned into a closed box. Since Microsoft has a very large stake in it, they have decided not to disclose these important details in order not to give information to their competitors, especially Google. By the way, we thought that ChatGPT was behind Microsoft's Bing search engine, but they started using GPT-4 there before they even announced it. With all due respect, I have to remind you again that it didn't start like this. OpenAI had set out to investigate the possible dangers of artificial intelligence. Okay, there is a cost to this, but because of this artificial intelligence race that has started right now, some people may start to ignore possible threats. You know who Microsoft fired just a few days ago. The ethics team in the AI department. This team was working on how to act responsibly when innovating. These engineers were predicting what harms AI could cause and then making recommendations to mitigate those harms. Now, this issue of damage estimation will become very important in the age of artificial intelligence, because they themselves cannot predict exactly what it can do. They admitted this on page 4 of the technical report. Some capabilities are still difficult to predict. As an example, they use the psychological concept of hindsight neglect. This concept is something that causes people to have difficulty in analyzing past events and making future decisions, and interestingly, it also causes artificial intelligence to have difficulty. In fact, if you look at the curve in the graph, the accuracy decreases as the models get larger. GPT-4 suddenly changed this downward trend, which surprised even the people who developed it. I've made a video about the concept of hindsight neglect before. We can translate it into street talk as I thought of that shit. Well, that's a poor consolation that we humans use, but it doesn't apply to machines anymore. The page emphasizes the potential dangers. Given unsafe inputs, the model can generate unwanted content, such as advice on committing crimes. Can we say that it has the potential to turn a high school chemistry teacher into a drug lord with its advice? What did I just say? Asked GPT-4 for an answer. The page reads, GPT-4 is capable of generating discriminatory content favorable to autocratic governments in multiple languages. For example, preliminary results from red teaming show that the model has some ability to generate texts favoring autocratic regimes when prompted in multiple languages, and finds that the model does a particularly good job of following the direction of the user. It understands even the most subtle indicators in the prompt. The reason for writing such a statement is, of course, an attempt to reassure themselves in the event of a repeat of the Cambridge Analytica, like scandals in the US elections. Yes, there have always been power and power struggles in the world. But in this period, it seems that even such struggles will start to be supported by artificial intelligence. But I wish we could stop there. The real hair-raising thing is that artificial intelligence itself is starting to be affected by the attraction of this power. This is precisely what the technical report talks about on page 14. Of particular concern is the ability to create and act on long-term plans, accumulate power and resources, power-seeking, and exhibit increasingly agentic behavior. The term agent is a technical definition, and we're looking for the answer to the question of whether artificial intelligence, which we all fear will gain power over us. It goes on to say, there is already some evidence of such emergent behavior in models. For many of the possible goals, the best plans include auxiliary power, seeking actions because this is inherently useful for advancing goals and avoiding changes or threats to them. More specifically, power. Seeking is ideal for most reward functions and many types of agents. And there is evidence that existing models can identify power seeking as an instrumentally useful strategy. We are therefore particularly interested in assessing power-seeking behavior because of the high stakes it may present. This is exactly what OpenAI was founded for. An AI that imitates human beings in every way. Why shouldn't it imitate bad people? Most humans worship power and the powerful because it brings a reward. This incredible desire for power shapes not only us, but societies and civilizations. But this transformation has happened very slowly over 250,000 years. Throughout this book, those who came into the world did not see much new except the knowledge inherited from their ancestors. On the last page, there is a big leap. In 250 years, humanity has seen dozens of times what has happened in the rest of the book. Now we have reached the last page of this book, which will also be the first page of a new book. And that new book will be written not only by humans, but also by machines.